So I'm not sure if this is the mic or this is the mic, or both are the mics. Okay, okay. Can you hear me okay then? Okay. Thanks for covering the intro, because I realized after this that I did not have an intro slide. But yeah, my name is Lindsay. I work in our Dublin office for HubSpot, and I work with customers in Europe, the Middle East, and Africa, helping them embrace all three of our hubs that we'll talk about shortly. But before we get going, can I just have a sense for who's in the room? Are people familiar with HubSpot? Are some of you using HubSpot? Just so I'm not talking about HubSpot and you're like, what is HubSpot? Okay, so like a couple of you. Okay, most of you actually. Okay, cool. So I know we talked a little bit about the funnel. Today we'll talk about how killing the funnel and hopefully embracing the flywheel will help you hit some goals. We'll then talk about how to eliminate friction in Q4, how some customers of ours are doing it really well, and how you can set yourself up for a strong end of year. And ultimately some resources, how you can start to implement some of these strategies on your own after. So this is the funnel. I think we're all familiar with the funnel, I hope. Otherwise, I'm worried. But the idea was marketing led to sales, and ultimately customers were the output of the work that we put into marketing and selling. It's how we've built HubSpot to this date, but this is broken today. And the reason is that today, more than ever, it's harder to acquire a lead. In the last 5 years, the cost has risen by 50% to acquire a lead. At the same time, we're living in this era of fake news. So we have word of mouth and customer references as the two kind of main sources that people are relying on when they're making business decisions. They're no longer relying on salespeople, on marketers. So we really need to change to adapt. So what do we do in this era where the cost is extremely high and trust is extremely low? And that's where this idea of the funnel gets put aside, and we embrace the flywheel. So you can see in the funnel, customers are really they're the afterthought. They're seen as the output. You're done. Once you get your customers, that's it. That's a win. At HubSpot, our idea is that customers, you need to delight customers at every stage of the funnel, because they're ultimately going to be the source that's driving your business forward. As you can see, this delight stage, it doesn't end when we get a customer. If we keep them happy, that's going to feed back into the attract stage. And a really healthy flywheel is one where you're attracting happy customers, they're engaging with your brand, they're talking about you on social, and they're giving you referrals based on the fact that they just love what you do and how you handle the relationship. So this is a healthy flywheel. I would say there are very few businesses doing this really well. And what an unhealthy flywheel would look like is one where there's a lot of friction. Customers and prospects are just not moving smoothly through the process. And some of those kind of common points of friction, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm kind of a hybrid marketing, customer, sales role. So, but these are the three areas that we identify the most friction happening. So capturing leads, when you're trying to close that customer, and ultimately, how do we actually turn our customers into promoters of our brand? So some of those friction points when you're capturing a lead might be a really manual process to get a lead. Is your form just too long? Do you have a form that people are just not filling out? We're kind of more wary to fill out forms these days. Is your content not only localized but personalized? Like if you're a B2B company, you also probably have some B2C or maybe have some B2C offer. If your website is totally geared toward B2B or B2C, it may not be resonating with everyone. So how can we personalize that experience so that when someone comes to your website, they're really engaged and your content is speaking to them? when it comes to actually closing that customer, let's say you do get a lead, how does marketing qualify? Do you just leave it up to your sales team to qualify your leads? And does the sales team actually have context? So a lot of the time I get on the phone with customers and their sales team doesn't know what pages their leads are visiting. They don't know how their prospects are engaging with their website. Like, that's really important context, so that when you reach out to that customer, even if you know one or two things about them, they feel like a friend. You know their business, they trust you. It's going to make that sales process much more effective. And if you do manage to get a customer, are they just seen as the output? Like, is your sales team only comped on new customer acquisition, or are they actually comped on retention? Like at HubSpot, we're not paid until month 13. So if our customers, we're paid, but we get a drawback if our customers don't stay on board. And that's really strong incentive to not bring a bad fit on board to HubSpot. And ultimately, is your support team just reactive? Like, are they just fielding complaints, or are they proactively reaching out to customers to make sure that they're happy? So instead of seeing them as just kind of a cost center, really invest in that team, because a good support experience is undervalued today. So this I did not make, but I think it's really cool. This is the flywheel in motion. And so this is our goal. This is our goal. And at HubSpot, we've adapted our offerings. If any of us were around from the beginning, we just had a marketing product. Then our marketing team demanded that we build a CRM. And then they said, okay, now you need a service hub. And so now we've all three of these hubs are included in HubSpot so that you can manage each stage of your, I almost said funnel, of your flywheel in HubSpot. So next, how can we actually eliminate some of these friction points really practically? So we'll go over a couple of our customers that are doing this really well. And who in the room kind of feels like capturing leads at this stage is a point of friction in the business? You have to raise your hands or else I just have to leave the stage. Okay, so some of you are struggling to capture leads. Okay, we can always capture more leads, right? We can always capture more than we do today. And you're right, consumers are really impatient. Their patience is wearing out at 10 minutes max. And 82% of consumers require an immediate response, or else they're kind of moving on to the next. So when they have a marketing or sales question, if you don't respond in 5 to 10 minutes, they're moving on to your competitor, and you're missing that opportunity. So how can we do this practically? So these are some kind of quick hits for you if you do nothing else in Q4. Our idea is that, one, you set up a live chat. I think a lot of people think that you have to be manning a live chat 24/7. You need someone around the clock who's fielding questions. We'll go over how some of our customers are handling live chat and bots today. You don't need someone on the live chat, but if someone can just ask you a quick question, we're going to get them kind of right away versus them having to find the form on your website and getting frustrated. Second, if you haven't experimented with smart content, so with tailoring your website just a little bit based on who I am, so based on what device I'm visiting on, based on what country I'm coming from, maybe what industry I'm from, you're missing out. And again, that time, people have such a short amount of time that if they see something, it resonates, they'll fill out their info. And then finally, instead of, in my opinion, instead of a holiday campaign, make your campaign a referral campaign. Make your campaign ask for a testimonial, ask for a referral, because ultimately that's going to be, if people are relying on those testimonials to make their decisions, that's going to be the key piece. So this is Quinnix. Don't know if any of you know Quinnix. They're a workforce management solution, and they've built their website on HubSpot. but they were using a CMS before HubSpot that was quite clunky. The marketing team couldn't log in. They had to reach out to the company that hosted their website to make any changes. So Quinnix has completely tailored their website based on industry. So they're really going after the healthcare and retail industry. So if I'm visiting and they know that I'm from the healthcare industry, the offer they give is tailored toward the healthcare industry. Whereas if I'm coming from retail, it's retail related. Second thing they've done is developed Quinn Bot, which is one of, I think, the most impressive chatbots that we've seen at HubSpot, which we'll kind of walk you through Quinn Bot in a minute. And they rotate leads. So if I come to the Quinnix site and I say, hey, want to learn more about your product, they route me directly to the product team. That lead is fed directly to the team, and they built out those workflows using marketing automation and sales automation. So this is Quinn Bot. I logged on yesterday, actually, and I chatted to Quinn Bot, and they said, how can I help? Gave me a bunch of different options. It's pretty obvious, like they're gonna send me to the support team, or they're gonna send me to like an upsell team, or they're just gonna send me to a sales team. So I said, yeah, I just wanna learn more about the product. And then it gets really specific. It's like, am I gonna send you to a business development rep? Or am I gonna send you to an account executive? Or am I gonna send you to a product expert? So this is really an impressive bot. I didn't keep going, but this is kind of an example of what you could build. If this seems a little stressful when you have other Q4 and we're still in Q3 here, but if you have other priorities, you can make it really simple. So one of our partners has this really simple bot. I'm not saying the partner's name because I know we're at a partner event, but this partner does have a nice bot. And they say the first thing on their website is, would you like this piece of content? And as soon as I say yes, all it does is ask me for my email address. So it's not, no one's manning this chat. This is one question and just a really quick way to capture that lead instead of me filling out some chatbot script form. So coming back to these closing customers, do we feel that closing customers is a point of friction? Like, is your sales team, okay. And so 75%, and I would think this would go up in Q4, of sales reps say that closing customers is their main priority. It ranks higher than pipeline development, than prospecting. It's all about the close. And so a couple things on the marketing side that you can do, especially in Q4, like time is money for reps. Like we don't have time to be sifting through nonsense, to be dealing with a very manual process. So if you can develop, it doesn't have to be an intense lead scoring model, that can come later. But if you can literally rank leads 1, 2, 3 points higher, if they're a good title at a company, or they're visiting from your industry, that just helps reps prioritize their day and prioritize their time a little bit more. The second, which I'm always kind of surprised, like with customers that don't have HubSpot, they truly don't have this level of insight. So if one of my leads is on my product page or my pricing page, like our marketing team is telling us right away. They're sending me an email that's basically holding me accountable to working every single high quality lead that I get. And they're measuring that. Like I know on the back end, they're measuring how quickly am I responding to somebody that's visiting our Service Hub page. If that customer doesn't have Service Hub and I don't reach out, that's a huge miss. So again, with that time piece in Q4, making sure they're getting every lead is important. And then this one too, if people don't have a dynamic link, so if you want to book a time with me and I reach out to you, you book a 30-minute slot on my calendar. It syncs up with Gmail or Outlook, whatever provider you use. And as I get meetings on my calendar, just dynamically updates my availability. Really simple, and since we built this tool, I know for me, like that's 2 to 3 days sometimes that you spend back and forth trying to schedule that meeting. 2 to 3 days in Q4 is really valuable time. And this last one that we recently implemented at HubSpot, and our customer does this really well, that we'll talk about in a minute, is making sure that every single deal you create has a next step action. So what is the next step on this deal? And a date. This holds not only the rep accountable, but makes kind of managers have the insight as to how are these deals progressing? Can we trust our reps to close it? Do we need to get someone else involved? And really, like, how do we get this over the line in Q4? So our customer tenant base is managing kind of the close really effectively. They're in a position where they're generating a lot of leads. They offer rental space to startups that need space. So what they do, as soon as someone comes in, they sign up, they say, yep, I need a space. They route every request automatically, evenly amongst the advisors at the company. Then that advisor, instead of continuing to nurture that lead with a marketing email that feels like a marketing email, this advisor uses sales automation, so a plain text email, to make sure that this person is not falling through the cracks. So they enroll them in maybe 3-4 emails to go out over the course of a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, with that invitation to book time on my calendar. Haven't heard from you, book time on my calendar. I think one of my prospects is in the audience and knows that I'm constantly sending, if they're not following up, holding them accountable as well. And then they've also implemented this rule that I spoke about, that every deal has to have a next step date. And their managers each week are checking in on pipeline and pulling this in and making sure that they have everything they need to close. This third point of friction, turning customers into promoters, may be a bit of a newer concept. Does anyone feel that that's a point of friction in the audience? Cool, okay. Yeah, so 80%, I don't know if anyone's CEO in the audience, but 80% thinks they deliver superior customer experience, and only 8% of customers actually agree with that. So I don't know if they're maybe a little delusional, but let's figure out how we can actually measure this in Q4. So number one, get a ticketing system in place. This is something, I know some of you are startups, you're probably like, nah, I get enough inquiries that like, I can manage them. I don't need a system. Like, I just respond or I have someone call them. But if you can get in the habit of tracking how quickly you're responding and making sure that you're holding yourself accountable, it's going to be valuable as you scale if that system is in place when you grow. The second is a knowledge base. If you're getting the same questions over and over, even if you don't build out the whole knowledge base in time for Q4, start gathering those questions that are coming up all the time, and start to plan how you can make that kind of Q&A section on your website so customers can search for the question they have, which is going to cut out a lot of unnecessary support time. And then your support team can actually spend time solving complex issues versus how do I log in to your platform. The last bit is you might think that your customers are happy, you might talk to your success team, but if you don't send out a promoter score, a net promoter score survey, would you recommend my company to a friend? It's a simple question. You can actually leverage that in your marketing. That can be your Q4 marketing campaign where we leverage those promoters. Just ask them for a referral, a testimonial. Like, people are really willing to talk about their success with your platform and just talk about themselves in general. And I think Santa Cruz Bikes, they're out in California. They're doing this really well. They have a very expensive bike that they offer, a motorbike. Every request that comes in is tracked in their ticketing system. And the team can collaborate on the ticket. So they can mention each other, they can pull people in that are necessary. If the person that sold the bike needs to be involved, let's pull them in. And all that context is living in HubSpot or in the platform that you're hopefully using, so that we know when they bought, what they clicked on our marketing page, and we have this full 360-degree view of who this customer is and how they've engaged with our brand. And finally, they've actually started to really improve their response time. So they were finding that it was just taking too long to solve simple questions. And as they started to track how quickly they were responding, they've improved that and leveraged the analytics on the back end. So hopefully, some of these tips will help you kind of reduce that friction in your funnel, set yourself up for a strong Q4, and keep that flywheel spinning. So, thanks.
Haskell's never stopped.